Hello, everybody. Welcome to my UFC 248 preview / whatever else you want to talk about. My name is Danny Segura, and yes, I'm here in Las Vegas. So if you're used to tuning into my usual streams, this is a little bit different. I'm in my hotel room right now, so I don't have the fancy setup with the fancy mic, but I hope this does the job. As usual, though, this still remains very much the same. You submit questions on Twitter, I answer them. And once I'm done with that, I move over to the live chat, and then I just, I answer those questions there. So I know this was a little bit of a last minute. I literally just threw a tweet out there, be like, yo, you guys are down to talk MMA? Okay, cool. Yeah, meet me in 30 minutes here on my YouTube channel. So thank you for those who are around and are watching this live. For those who are catching up post, thank you as well for tuning in. Remember, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, tell people about it. And that's it. That's all we got. So I don't know if I'm going to go the full hour today, so let's get started right away. I guess I'll feel it out. Today, usually I have a good old coffee with me, but because it is somewhat late at night and I'm in Vegas, I figured it'd be fitting to have some alcoholic beverages here. So mainly this is a preview for UFC 248, as I mentioned. So obviously going down tomorrow and here in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. Literally just like around there. You can see it from the window, but I'm not going to turn around the camera or anything like that. But yeah, so let's get right into it. You submitted questions and I will answer them. Lots to talk about. This card has picked up a lot of steam in the last few days, or maybe it's just because I'm actually on site, so I feel it rather than being at home. But it seemed like it was a very good card going into it. But now that we're just literally hours away, a day away, it just seems so much bigger. All right. So, first question by Pat Delude. Do you think everybody's sleeping on Joel? The odds are like 3-1 for Izzy. I think it's much closer than that. And you? Yeah, that's a good one. If you look at the stats, I think 3-1 is a fair assumption given the fact that Israel Adesanya is undefeated. The last victories that he's picked up have been amazing, right? Yoel Romero, on the other hand, he's gotten beat up. He's also beaten up people as well, but he's been in wars in the last few fights, and he hasn't gotten the right results, right? He's 1-3 in his last 4, and that's one of the reasons why many people are complaining about him getting a title shot, although I think the closer this fight has gotten, the more that has dwindled away, especially at today's weigh-ins. Man, I was there and everybody was like, "Oh my god!" When they were staring down, it was definitely something. So yeah, I feel like that's gone away. But yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe a lot of the odds makers go along with the stats, or maybe just obviously look at the stats and base a lot of their odds on that. So I think, with that in mind, I think it's somewhat fair, but personally, I do think it's a lot closer. Earlier today, I joined my friend Luke Thomas on his Sirius XM show, and he asked me, he's like, "Yo, you want to make a pick? If you feel comfortable, throw it out there." And I went with Israel Adesanya. I think, if I had a gun to my head, pick someone, I'd pick Adesanya. But by no means am I sleeping on Romero. By no means do I think Romero is a huge underdog. I think this is very, very close. And Romero's been looking good all week. He's said all the right things, made weight, and didn't look like he was hurting or anything like that. I believe it was like a fight or two ago. He you saw him get on the scale and he was kind of complaining and cramping, and he looked amazing on the scale. Yes, he came in last. Obviously, he probably just took advantage of all the time he could possibly get to make weight. That way it's not as harsh of a cut. And but yeah, he looked good, man. He looked good. He's extremely focused. He's changed a few things around his camp, and this is it, man. This is it. Israel Adesanya hasn't faced anyone like him, so there are questions about that. So I agree with you, man. I don't, Pat. I don't think this is. I don't think the odds are really representative of the fight. But even though I don't think they're representative of the fight, I get it. I get it. If you look at the stats, Yoel Romero should be a decent underdog, right? But no, I do think it's much closer than a 3-1 in my opinion. I don't think it's a 50-50. Like you said, I favor Izzy in this one, but you'd be a fool to count out Romero. Yeah. All right, moving on to the next question on Twitter. We got Anthony J. I probably shouldn't answer this because the dude's got a Barcelona player as his Xavi. Is that Messi? Yeah, it's Messi. I respect Messi, so I'll answer it. If it was Griezmann, I would have been like, "Yo, get out of here." But anyways, do you think Joel has a chance? Sorry, yeah, similar question. Yeah, I do think he has a chance. He has a good chance. I think he has a chance, a better chance that most people are giving him, especially the odds makers. I probably should have read that question before I answered it. It was very much like the first one. All right, so yeah, that's my answer. Moving on to the next one. What did you think of the UFC 249 press conference? Seems like the hostility for drama. Wait, seems like the hostility is for the drama to sell. Your thoughts? Yeah, so a bit not related to UFC 248, obviously a different event here, the next pay-per-view, which I believe I'll be attending to. It's in Brooklyn. That's where I live. Mm, yeah, it was an interesting one. I mean, these guys have been matched up several times before, and they've had certain things to say to each other, and we've definitely seen that this is not like no what like trying to think of what fight was very peaceful. I think one that comes to mind often is I believe it was Chris Weidman versus Kelvin Gastelum. I believe when that had that like big summer press conference, and at that time it was like fresh off like I forgot what Conor McGregor fight, but like that's when I think Kevin Lee like got into a scuffle with Mike Chiesa, and like a lot of guys were and girls were like talking crap about each other and all that, and they were like completely chill the entire time. Um, it didn't have that vibe, but like it also like it was fairly friendly. Now this one it did make a big turn. I don't know if it's because, especially from the Tony Ferguson side, because I think although Khabib, had some things to say as well, I feel like most of those things were in response to what Tony Ferguson was saying rather than going after him. In fact, probably out of all the people, I think he gave him the most credit. Like even when Khabib was talking, Tony Ferguson would jump in and kind of diss him, and Khabib would just keep talking good about him. So that was interesting. Um, I don't think it's necessarily like they're trying to sell the fight, because I think this fight is huge. I think it sells itself. Just the fact that it's been booked for so long, and the matchups keep falling through and all that. I feel like there's already a lot of buzz surrounding it, and also Khabib is a huge star at this point, right? Especially after the Conor fight. And even the fight in Abu Dhabi, like against Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier isn't like the biggest name in the world. I mean, he's a good name. He's not like a Conor name, but certainly, I remember traffic wise, like there was a lot of traffic and buzz surrounding that fight, a lot of interest. So Khabib is a huge star, and so yeah, I don't think there's much reason to sell. I just think that Ferguson's been out for so long. He's been skipped over for so long. And when he's actually not gotten skipped over and gotten the crack at the title, something's happened, whether he's gotten injured or Habib's gotten injured. So the vibe that I kind of got, it was just like he's amped up. He's amped up, maybe a little bit frustrated, but just amped up to finally be there. Like, I mean, that's a long time. That's a 12-fight win streak. That's like what, I forget how many years, but like it's like a 6 years in the making, or something like that. Let me pull it up just so I'm not talking out of my ass. Let's see. Tony Ferguson. It's been a long time for him, so he's finally here. He feels good. So yeah, I just feel like it's a little bit of him being amped up, and also a little bit frustrated. So he's just ready to go. Yeah, it's been. I mean, his win streak started in 2013. Man, that's a long time. That's 7 years, almost 7 years. So yeah. So yeah, I don't think it was like them selling the drama to answer your question. I think it came very organic. I don't think either guy was out of character. I think Tony was being Tony and Khabib was being Khabib, and that's kind of like those two ingredients, and given the situation, that's kind of the recipe that you get. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. But I don't necessarily think it was like very fabricated, or they were really going out of their way to sell this. I think the fight is sold. It's been sold, in my opinion. Now it doesn't hurt to trash talk a little bit, but yeah. So that was Kah on Twitter, aka at Curtis CPT? Thank you for that question. Although it wasn't UFC 248 related. We'll keep the train rolling as far as the press conference at UFC the UFC 249 press conference. Tyler Grissom says or asks, how do you feel about that reporter who asked Tony about his mental health issues? Seems like it was wrong place / wrong time. So just to start off, I don't really have a huge, like a really strong opinion about this, but just to kind of as a base for my argument and opinion, I'll just say this. By no means did that reporter do anything wrong. Sometimes when you attend media events, they'll tell you you can't ask about this, you can't discuss this. For the most part, that's usually a bad look for PR and whatever promotion or managers telling you not to. You can't touch on these subjects. But there's also situations where it's actually not that bad of a look, and it actually is a important to keep a certain focus on whatever matters. So I'll give you a good example. I went to, I believe, when the UFC EA3 game came out, I went to a beta testing. I believe it was in like MSG or something like that, somewhere in New York City. And Demetrius Johnson was there, and a bunch of media members went, and we got to play the game. We got a sort of a rundown from the creators of what was new and all this and that. And then at the end, we got to test it out, play the game, play against Demetrius, interview Demetrius. And because they were promoting the game, and also I think Demetrius probably doesn't like to talk about MMA, but we weren't allowed to ask MMA questions. It was all surrounding the game, really. So there's those occasions. So anyways, so this wasn't the case for this press conference. We weren't told anything like that. So that reporter whose name I don't know, but you can go back and watch it and see who that person is. They probably had the camera focus on him. Yeah, he did absolutely nothing wrong. You're free to ask whatever you want. It also wasn't a stupid question. Like, it's something that's been relevant in Tony Ferguson's life. Obviously, the mental health issues. Remember, that's really, I think, the main reason why he didn't fight. He didn't end up fighting Khabib in Abu Dhabi because he was supposed to get some sort of interim shot or something like that. But then, he was having those issues, and Dustin Poirier ended up getting it. Now, there's probably other factors involved in it as well, but that's just to say that, it is a relevant question. Right now, he's back. Also, he mentioned something very interesting, that he hasn't sparred since the Gleison Tebow fight, and for this fight, he's going to spar. So again, all that correlates, especially mental health and brain trauma and all that. So by no means did that guy do anything wrong, but I do agree with you that it wasn't the right place. Usually those type of questions, when you want to get, those are intimate questions in a way. You want to ask them on a one-on-one or a scrum that's media only, somewhere where the interviewee can open up and really articulate everything and really express himself or herself, very well with time in a calm environment. These press conferences, really, you're mainly looking for short answers, right? You're not going to sit there and discuss a subject at length and I say at length because it's really not that long, like 2, 3, 4 minutes. No, this is question, answer. The public's there. It's honestly, in some ways, like, yeah, you get some good information out of it, but in a lot of ways, it's just a show, really, to promote the fight. So yeah, I don't think it was the right place or time to ask that. But at the same time, Luke Thomas made a good point about this. He tweeted something out. It's tough getting one-on-ones. Like, Tony Ferguson is the main event of one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. Like, good luck getting a one-on-one with that guy. Maybe as the fight gets closer, that'll be possible, or at least a scrum. But at this point in time, that's a tough thing to do. So, yeah, man, you got a question, shoot your shot, and he got that answer. And also, Tony Ferguson is completely in his right to, deny any questions. He doesn't owe the media absolutely anything. He chooses, what he wants to talk about and what questions he wants to answer and all that. Now, he probably could have done it a little bit nicer rather than cussing at the guy, but that's Tony Ferguson, man. What else can I say? So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. He did nothing wrong, by the way. But I would say that I believe that there are better times to ask those type of things. All right. Justin Carter on Twitter. Why do people consider, back to UFC 248, why do people consider Zhang a power hitter when she really only has one KO from Andrade running into a punch? Yeah, so that's an interesting one. And I feel like maybe some people might think that I'm a Zhang Weili hater, but by no means that's completely false. She's very skilled, and I'm very impressed with what she's done. But like you said, Justin, there's been this aura built around her. Like she's already a goat in women's MMA. She's already a long reigning champion. Like she's already achieved so much. But the reality is, this is her first title defense. She's only 4 fights into the UFC. Like you mentioned, she only has 1 knockout. And yes, I see her. I don't know how she makes 115. She looks huge, super jacked. I mean, at the open workouts, I was looking at her back, and she had a shirt over. It wasn't. I don't even think it was like a tight rash guard, and you could just see her back muscles. Like, she's terrifying woman. She is very skilled. She's got a lot of power, hitting those pads like, whoo. I mean that's a dangerous fighter right there. But like I said, she's still fairly unproven, and this is 100% a fact. Her hype does not match what she's achieved in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? Now, her hype could be right here, and then she could go on and destroy you and Jacek and start building and eventually match that hype. 100%, she's capable of doing that, for sure. I acknowledge that. But at this point in time, this is a fact. Her hype does not match what she's done in the UFC. So, I mean, I kind of agree with you on that. Like, she's being considered like this crazy hitter, this crazy power puncher. I'm not saying that she's not. All I'm saying is I want to see more. I want to see more. Again, she's only 4 fights into her career. So, why do people consider Zhang a power hitter? I mean, she looks good on the pads. She hits the pads pretty fucking hard. And the UFC has done a great job at promoting her and putting her out there as one of the top fighters out there. And they have interest behind that because she's Chinese and China is a huge market for them. But to be completely fair, you can't do that off the back of lies. Like you got to have some sort of evidence to sort of build that hype. And the fact is that, look, her first 4 fights in the UFC, she just looked amazing. That KO of Andrade was amazing. She looks good on the pads. She's an amazing athlete. I mean, very promising fighter, and she's the champ. So, yeah, there's definitely evidence to suggest that she's a power puncher and the next big thing. But like I said, there's also some promotion that I feel like has blinded some people. Maybe not blinded some people, but just maybe skewed their perception about her just slightly. But again, a great fighter. I am, by no means am I taking anything away from her. All I'm saying is I want to see more, and I'm gonna see more tomorrow. So I'll see that in person. I'm excited for that one. Thank you for the question, Justin. Great question, by the way. All right. Let's see. Cheech and John. Great name. Can you elaborate on the strikes Ferguson mentioned about Khabib? I know one was about how Khabib made a homeless person asking for change dance before giving him money, which is a scumbag move. What are the others? Yeah, it's not a great move. I mean, at the end of the day, he is giving the money, which is nice, but like that's definitely a kind of a humiliating way of doing it, right? I don't remember the dancing part. I was just reading your question. I don't think that was the case, and I don't think Ferguson mentioned that. But what Ferguson did mention, and what I did see a video of, was making the homeless people do push-ups for their money. Again, fighters have done way worse things. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but certainly if you're trying to aid the needy, that's probably not the best way to go about it. Yeah, so that was strike number 1. He also talked about something about like hurting a a high school wrestler or something like that while training, and then mentioned Cormier, like something like, "Oh, Cormier told you not to lock hands." I don't know what that's all about, but for those wondering about the locking hands part, in wrestling, at least in American wrestling, like what would be what, folk style wrestling, you can't lock hands when an opponent is on bottom. You can't do that. You can do it, I believe, in Olympic wrestling, but not in folk style wrestling. So you can grab the body in certain ways, but you can't do this. You can't lock up unless it's a pinning combination. Um, and I'm guessing, he hurt a high schooler or something. Like I don't even know if that's true, but it kind of wouldn't surprise me because there's that Daniel Cormier connection. Who he coaches the youth and in wrestling and all that. So maybe I don't know. Someone came on the mat and trained with them, and I mean, you train with Khabib, something might happen. That dude's an animal. So I don't know the exact details. I don't even know if that's even true. But that's just sort of kind of what I got out of I guess that second strike. And then the third strike, and I was just watching the video. I don't know what the third strike was. Might have said something like just because he didn't show up for the fight or something like that. Regardless, I don't think it's very important, to be honest. It's just kind of these ideas and phrases that Ferguson develops in his head, and then kind of called them out on that area. So yeah, I don't have much to say about that. But thanks for the question, Cheech and John. Appreciate it. Let's see. Let me refresh this real quick. I believe, okay, we got one more on Twitter. Actually, we got a couple more that people just submitted. Let's see. Michael Terrell. All right, he's back. I love Michael. He submits great questions. Would the UFC host a no spectator event to prevent canceling Tony versus Khabib? Amazing question. So Serie A is actually doing that. So Italian soccer, the coronavirus is really bad in Italy, and the season has to go on. There's a lot of millions of dollars involved in that industry. So they've held matches with absolutely nobody in the stadium, and it's kind of creepy to watch. Like it's like post-apocalyptic. It's the strangest thing in the world. Obviously, Brooklyn, just New York City in general, the New York area is high density in population. If the coronavirus were to have a pretty bad outbreak there, like it'd be bad. Again, I don't know exactly. I know New York City. New York City has taken like some precautions and has like allocated like a big chunk of money for beds and just like medical equipment and all this to help contain the virus and sort of treat it. I don't know how effective that will be. But I don't know. I don't know. We know that they make a good buck. The UFC makes a good money off the gate. So I don't know if they would consider having a fight at the Barclays. That they'll maybe postpone it, move it somewhere else. I have no idea. They know what White was asked about that at the press conference, UFC 249. You can check out the video on MMAJunkie.com. And to save you some time, you can actually, we have an article about that, so you can actually just check out the exact seconds when Dana White addresses that. And yeah, he basically said that he's in talks with doctors and kind of like officials, and there's been some conversation about it, or at least that's what he says, but didn't give much else about that, and said that no, they're not canceling the event. So I don't know. My guess is the UFC wouldn't consider that because they make a good money off the gate. I think with certain other things like the Serie A, like Italian soccer, their TV deals are really mostly how the teams make money and selling jerseys and all that as well. I mean, the gate is important as well, but the TV deals are huge for them. So yeah. I mean, that'd be still. I mean, they have the pay-per-view model as well. It's a little different, but still. Good question. Also, knock on wood. Hopefully, coronavirus, one, for my sake, because I'm out there in Brooklyn, doesn't get bad over there. Two, because I really want to see that fight. That fight has to happen. It has to happen. And if it takes a global pandemic to cancel that fight for a fifth time, that's when I'd go, all right, this shit's cursed, because that'd be like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Injuries and literally the nail in the coffin, like a global pandemic. That'd just be, the MMA gods just don't want this fight, period. That'd be insane if it were to happen. Let's see. Justin Carter, back at it again. What do you think is a harder deficit to make up for in a fight? An extreme physical one like Yoel Romero, or an extreme skill gap like GSP? Certainly the skill. Because it comes to a point, like you can beat certain fighters, or I guess you can beat certain opposition that's better than you using athletic ability. But that only takes you so long. That only takes you so far. I mean, there's definitely like a gap and a threshold where you can beat someone that's far more skilled than you just out of physicality. But there comes a point where the skill is just so great, or if the gap is so great that you could be, a million times faster, have extreme conditioning, be stronger. There's just, that's just not going to count for anything. So definitely, fighting on a deficit of skill, I think it's a tougher thing. Yeah. However, if the skill gap is not that great, physicality can take you pretty far. And I've experienced that firsthand. I mean, I'm not a big dude. I weigh like 150 pounds about. So, when I've grappled and trained with like other, other people like that are much stronger or bigger than me, like you feel it, and sometimes it's frustrating because like when you feel your technique is a bit superior, but you're just not as strong and just not in as good of a shape, and you feel it, man, and it sucks. But yeah, I would say definitely the skill gap is a tougher thing to fight against. All right. A lot of these questions they've been great, don't get me wrong, but not UFC 248 related. I believe that's it for the Twitter questions. I'm going to take things to the chat just right here in a moment. Let me just double check Twitter, because sometimes people tweet at me directly and don't reply to a thread where I can see all the questions lined up. All right, so this one's been getting some heat, and I kind of want to address it. Tyler Grimsom asked me, but this was on another tweet, but I'll still read it anyways. Is Tony a real Mexican? Are you a real Colombian? You spelled Colombia wrong with a U. It's with an O. We needed these answers. So yeah, that was interesting. I feel like some people took offense to that Khabib was telling Ferguson, you're not a real Mexican, this and that. But I guess and I say this with all the respect in the world, but there is some truth to that. Like, Tony Ferguson has Mexican heritage, for sure, 100%. And I guess he can identify himself as Mexican, but he wasn't born in Mexico. I don't even know if he has like a Mexican passport or, citizenship. So that's a tricky, there you're playing with like definitions, like what do you consider, right, a Mexican, right? Language comes into play, all that. Like I consider myself Colombian. I was born in Colombia. Spanish is my first language. I have a Colombian passport. I am a Colombian citizen. You know what I'm saying? Certainly not American, although technically I am now because I'm a citizen, I'm an American citizen. I have a American passport. So again, it's all about definition. But for the longest time, and really how I was raised was like you were born somewhere, and that's where you're from, and something that I found really interesting when I moved to the States, like especially when you're a kid, like easy conversation topic when you're trying to make friends and even today, not necessarily when you're a kid, is like hey, where are you from, and I always got the weirdest answers, like when I moved to this country in like middle school, because because people would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm 25% Irish. I am 35% German. This and that." And I'm just like, wait, so you were born like 35% in that to me doesn't make any sense. Do you speak German? Like, like, were you born there? Have you been to Germany? Like, usually the answer was no. But again, I'm nobody to tell anyone else how to identify. I have, for example, my best friend. He was born in Queens, and his parents are Colombian from Cali. And dude, the dude can go to Colombia and pass off as Colombia. He speaks Spanish completely fluent. His outlook towards things is very Spanish. He looks, Colombian. Culturally, he's he knows everything about the culture as well. So it's like I consider him Colombian, but he wasn't born there. He goes to Colombia like every year. So yeah, it's like a weird conversation. So I think Tony Ferguson should be able to identify himself as however he wants. If he feels Mexican, that's how he should identify himself as, right? But I'll say there's a little bit of truth to what Khabib says. The fact is, Ferguson wasn't born in Mexico. He was born in America. He's an American citizen. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. All right, that was it for the Twitter questions. So I'm gonna take things to the live chat right now. I've been staring at Twitter. Unfortunately, I don't have two screens, so I have no idea what the hell's going on in the live chat. I don't even know how many people are watching this thing. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna go a fondo blanco. Fondo blanco means in Spanish, basically like clear bottom, which just means chug in, if I were to translate. Clear bottom. All right. I'm gonna go so I'm 30 minutes deep. I don't know if I'm gonna go the full hours I said, so I'm just gonna talk about answer some of the questions on the chat, and then when I think it's time to call it quits, I'll call it quits. I do have some things to do. Just to put it on your radar, tomorrow is the Dominance Media Day. So let me pull up the email here. Do I have an email? So Ali Abdelaziz set up a media day with a bunch of his fighters, and myself, John Morgan, Mike Bong, Nolan King. We're gonna go and talk to him. Obviously, other media members from other sites are gonna be there as well. But just giving you a heads up, like we're gonna have a great content coming from that media day, and Justin Gage, he's going to be there. So he's been rumored to fight Conor McGregor in the summer. So that'd be interesting to talk to him. So just putting it on your radars so you know what to expect from us at MMA Junkie in the coming days. Obviously, still UFC 240 is our priority because that's the event going down this weekend. But you'll see a lot of content from that Dominance Media Day in the coming days. Obviously, if we get anything breaking news, it's going to go right away for sure. All right. One second. Hold on. All right, cool. All right, let's go to the chat. That press conference was weird. I didn't think it was weird. I thought it was cool. I liked it. For some reason, Khabib and Tony bring something out of each other that's very interesting, and it's kind of like this, like they're polar opposites, but at the same time, it's like real recognize real type shit. So like, I don't know. I feel like low key, like deep down, they I mean, certainly they have respect for each other. I mean, they've said it. They're like, yeah, this, we are the top of 155 pounds. Like we respect each other, but I feel like low key, they might like each other. And I guess we'll see after their fight. Whoever wins and loses, we'll see how they handle that, and if they're cool. Unlike the Khabib Conor situation where it was like, the fight was done and shit just escalated after that, right? There was no good vibes at all between those two. Where I feel like in this one, like it looks pretty hostile. Obviously, the press conference was a big telling of that. But I don't know. Again, both guys have been through hell. Both guys really worked to get a title shot, right? They struggled. They had struggles. They're very similar. They've had injuries. They're very similar fighters, but in opposites. It's weird. It's a weird thing, but it's a great matchup. I'm all for this fight. All right. Diego Simeone is the GOAT. Yes, he is. Also, Atletico's playing Liverpool, and news just broke, I believe it was earlier today, that Alisson, Liverpool's goalkeeper, who's amazing, is out due to injury. So, so that's good news for us. I'm still not trying to get, my hopes too high because it's only a 1-0 lead, and Liverpool is Liverpool. But things are starting to look good, man. If we were to knock out the champions, I don't care what happens at La Liga, to be honest. Like, I know we're fifth and we're not doing so hot, but if we manage to have a good Champions League run, that'll do it for sure. Hey Danny, what's the vibe like in Vegas right now? So I went to get these couple beers at the bar. Yeah, people are just, it's Vegas. Like, it's crazy. It's kind of like Miami a little bit, but like on steroids. Like, people are just partying 24/7. People are drinking 24/7. I wake up to go have breakfast, and people are drinking and gambling at like 7 a.m. It's nuts. And obviously, I'm staying at I'm not gonna say where I'm staying, but I'm staying at a hotel, obviously on the strip that has a casino. So like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And I mean, I did see that the last time I was here, I was like 19 or something like that, so I was underage. So you can only walk around the casino for a certain amount of time and stick around, right? And then they'll start asking you for your ID. So this time around, that I'm older and obviously of age to drink, yeah, man, it's a wild city. I was telling Luke when we chatted earlier today on his radio show on Sirius XM. I'm like, bro, I've been here since Sunday, and I feel like I've been here for like 2 months. It's felt like an eternity. My God, even the first day, I was like, I'm done. It's a lot to deal with. So you have to pace yourself and be as responsible as you possibly can. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good trip. It's been a productive trip, and over at MMA Junkie, we've been doing good work, and it's been fun, man. It's been a fun event to cover, and we're not even at the fight yet, so I'm excited. Let's see. Adam, Danny, do you think Izzy will pick apart Romero, considering Romero doesn't use his wrestling in an offensive approach? So that's interesting. And I could be completely wrong about this. Again, I don't know. I try to ask Romero when I spoke to him in Spanish. That interview's up on my YouTube channel. If you speak Spanish and you're able to catch it, great. If you don't, sorry. I mean, go to MMA Junkie. You can get your stuff there. But Romero actually brought somebody from Italy, like a high level wrestler. I don't know his name, but it seems to me that he's been giving wrestling a focus. He's been giving wrestling a focus. And, he's got the accolades. He's got the physicality to impose a wrestling game. But for whatever reason in MMA, his wrestling is good, don't get me wrong, and his takedowns are great. But his actual control on the ground is not the best. Or maybe it's just because, he's got that KO power that, the dude just kind of defaults to that. I don't know. But we certainly haven't seen like a Khabib type performance from a guy that has the accolades to pull off a Khabib type performance. So yeah, I don't know. I get the feeling that, look, he's been probably analyzing at his past few fights. Again, this is all me analyzing. This is not anything that Joel has said, but he's gotten into a lot of fights that a lot of people thought he won, but he ends up losing, like close split decisions. And I feel like, with him bringing somebody that knows how to wrestle and obviously giving a focus on that. And we saw at the open workouts, the dude was wrestling a lot. He was like, it was like Romero Airlines. He was just launching people at the open workouts. I feel like he might, again, I don't feel like he's going to go on a full on wrestling strategy, but I feel like he might just up it up a notch just to turn those split decision losses into split decision wins. Because look, if you add one takedown in like 30 seconds to a minute of control, in all those fights that he lost, most likely that split decision would have gone the other way. And he's got the physicality to do it. He's got the skills to do it. And if I were, his coach, I'd be like, bro, you don't have to stop fighting the way you like to fight and change your style, but literally just get one more takedown. Just get one more takedown. Control the fight for a little longer. And there you go. All of a sudden, all those losses will turn into wins. He's that close into winning those fights. A lot of those fights I thought he won. The second Whitaker, I thought he won. The one against Paulo Costa, I thought he won. So, but again, who cares what people think, right? It's what the judges think. So that's kind of my thought about this. And yeah, we'll see if that's the case. It's funny. In Spanish, I spoke to him, and he actually said something that he's never said in English. I'm like, so what do you think about Israel Adesanya? He's fairly like somebody from the new school. Obviously, you've been around. You fought the guys that have been around in the division for a long time, like the Weidemans, the Luke Rockholds, etc. Like all these legends. What do you make of his skills? Do you think he brings anything new? And he's like, you know what? I think he's a bit of a mix between Lyoto Machida and Luke Rockhold. And I'm like, well, you did very well against those two. Is there anything you're going to implement from those camps and the approach to those fights? And he's like, you're going to watch the fight on Saturday? I'm like, yep, I'll be there. All right, then you'll see. And that's it. I mean, that guy's very mysterious. So we'll see. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. I don't know. But there's definitely something different about him for this card. I don't know. We'll see. But again, if I were his coach, definitely up his wrestling. Edwin Campos, ¿qué pasó, mi hermano? Danny, you sound Mexican, bro. Dude, I have so many Mexican friends out in Brooklyn that el güey se me ha pegado. Like I say güey sometimes. Just to fuck around with them, I'd be like, no mames. I'll throw that one around. You know which one has stuck with me? And I say this automatically. Ba. I like that one. Like you tell like a Mexican, you'd be like, yo, you wanna have a beer on Thursday? Ba. It's like, yeah. I like that one. And there's Mexicans have a lot of cool sayings. So yeah, just hanging. Like one of my best friends is Mexican. I have tons of friends that are Mexican. So like, you stick around, certain accents. That's why like I never gave Mackenzie Dern like a whole lot of I know a lot of people went on Twitter and like would talk smack about like her accent and all this, because there was a change between her American accent to Brazilian. But I'll say this, man, you stick around like a certain accent long enough, like things start sticking. I remember I used to work with a lot of people from Cali, Colombia, and they speak a certain way. And like I worked with them for like a year plus, right? Like, four times a week while I was in college. This was at a restaurant. And over time, el be and all these things that los caleños, like the caleño people say, like started sticking around. So I feel like accents are contagious. Not 100% to the point that all of a sudden, I'm speaking 100% in a Mexican accent, but certainly like, you start picking up things here and there. But yeah, so funny you picked that up. Edwin Campos. How different is Joel's personality when speaking Spanish? Sometimes it's hard for you guys' personalities to come through in a second language. 100%. Even like with me, I feel like when I talk to people in Spanish and yeah, I have, in a way, I don't feel like my personality changes, but like even jokes or like little things, how you express yourself, it changes. It changes the context of things. So that's why I like, if I have the chance, I'll interview someone in Spanish. And like you see like Joel in that interview, even if you don't understand anything of what he's saying, like you see him smile, you see his body language a lot more different. We're talking about salsa and the phrases he uses and a lot of Cuban. Also, I grew up in, I spent a good time in Miami, so I got that Cuban Spanish also down on lock. So it's funny all the things he says as well. So yeah, it definitely brings a different light. And yeah, he's a much more, it feels like happier, a much more comfortable. Obviously, I mean, English is not his first language. Something interesting about Joel, a lot of people might not know this, and I feel like anybody that has like a really heavy accent is not always the case, and not everyone sees it this way. But I feel like often, like people 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 like look at people look at people with heavy accents almost as if they were dumb. But just because you have an accent, you have a hard time like pronouncing like certain words. I feel like people might see, I don't know, people might see you as dumb or take it as less smart, right? Rather than, if you speak very proper and you have this British accent or something, right? I mean, you see like companies use British accents in commercial all the time to sort of add a little whatever to it, a little fling, a intellectual fling. Joel Romero is super smart. He actually is fluent in German. He lived in Germany. He defected from Cuba to Germany, and the dude speaks German fluently. So he speaks Spanish, English, German. I don't know what else he speaks, but there's a little fun fact for you if you didn't know. But yeah, very different. When you speak on your native tongue, something else comes out. I'm sure, for example, Zhang Weili. I'm sure if there's any media, Chinese media, or people that speak I don't want to say Chinese Mandarin, or there's another language, but I'm forgetting the name of it. Is it Cantu or something like that? I don't know. But anyways, I'm sure they can probably say the same thing and back me up on that. You'll get a different emotion, a different reaction from her, probably most likely. Just finished watching Invicta in Kansas with open scoring. Do you think this is a positive change? I don't know. I didn't watch it, but Matt Erickson, I believe, was watching Invicta from her site. Um, I don't know. I gotta go watch it, but I do. I like the fact that they're trying, they're experimenting. Einstein has this really famous quote. I'm sure you guys have heard it a million times, but he defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So here we are, all these cards, all these events, complaining about the scoring. But what are we? I mean, and I say we. I can't do anything about it. I'm just media. I can only talk about it. But like, what are people doing about it? Nothing. So it is insane to kind of expect something different when literally nothing is being done. And for the first time in a long time, we're messing around, or Invicta's messing around with the scoring, and it could be a complete failure. But knowledge is new information, whether it's good or bad. So the more you know, the more knowledgeable you are. So we will, if it's a mess, okay, we will know open scoring is a bad idea. So this whole argument where that people talk about open scoring, you can throw that out the window, and we can start putting our focus on new ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a great move by Invicta, and yeah, I'll be checking it out. I'm busy with the UFC 248 stuff, but at some point, either late this week, either Sunday or early next week, I'm gonna dive into it and see what happened and see how it looked, because it's definitely something interesting for sure. Do you have any firsthand info on Weili flipping off Joanna fans at the open workouts? Curious, since Joanna brought it up during the first face-off. So I was there, but you're working, you're posting stuff on social, you're doing this and that, you're writing stories. So I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. But apparently that was because some Polish fans were, doing kind of like yelling at her something about coronavirus, which is obviously pretty fucked up. I mean, people are dying. A nation is literally undergoing a crisis, right? Global economy is taking a hit. It's a big deal, man. So yeah, it's obviously a fucked up situation to do that. But at the same time, that's what her manager said. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. And then we have a video of Weili actually flicking off the fans. I didn't hear anything there either as well. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It could have been before, and then she kind of saved it, and then they might have said something that the cameras didn't pick up. I don't know. I don't know the situation. So I don't want to comment too much on it, because again, yes, I was there, but I can't attest for these things. Like I didn't catch them. So I'd be lying to you if I were like, oh yeah, this happened, whatever. Um, but yeah, it certainly happened. It's on video, flicking off the fans for sure. I remember we're doing yelling at him in Spanish, probably talking about Ferguson. Yeah, those two got into it. Yeah, I remember that too. I think it was like in a like a media lunch in LA or something like that. It always at that one restaurant that they do things. Spot on picks. You look Caucasian. Uh, I mean, tons of Hispanic people are. This is like a huge misconception. Just because like you're from a Latin country, people think you should be, brown or tan or whatever. No, there's tons of white Hispanics. In fact, from where I'm from, Bogota, most people are extremely white. Probably this camera is doing me some favors because I'm really white. But yeah, misconception there. What some other Colombian music? What some other Colombian music other than Grupo Nietzsche, Joy Arroyo to check out? I love Entrega. So I'll actually put you those people, all those legends of music and old school people. But I'll put you on to some new shit. Bomba Stereo is really good, especially live. They're amazing. Bomba Stereo is really good. They mix a lot of like electronic music with like cumbia, which has been around for probably hundreds of years. So it's a good sound. It's a sound that sounds very familiar, and also a sound that's has a lot of cultural ties and very classic in that sense. But at the same time, with the electronic part, it's also very modern as well, and it's got like this cool hip feel to it. So check out Bomba Stereo. I love Bomba Stereo. They're one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live twice, and recently I've been on Onda Tropical. That's ONDA Tropical. They're kind of like, they're definitely influenced by Bomba Stereo as well, but they're their own thing as well. And again, mixing a lot of Colombian, historically like Colombian, like very classic Colombian music into like modern stuff. I mean, you can say the same thing about what's a band called? I'm blanking now. Sistema Solar, so solar system. Sistema Solar, also Colombian. There's a lot of really good bands coming out of Colombia right now. So Bomba Stereo, Sistema Solar, Onda Tropical. What else? There's a bunch of them. So shout out to those. Check those out if you like Colombian music, and also you're looking for something kind of with a new sound to it. That's what you want to hear at a party. You're just vibing at the gym. It's great vibes. Recommend it. Let's see. It's very American to have multiple identities. We have our own unique ethnic cultures that have mixing my parents, grandparents' culture. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if Ferguson wants to identify, there's definitely a Mexican American thing to like culture. Even myself, like I'm an immigrant, and I go to Colombia, and like there's definitely like cultural things that like I might not share with some Colombians just because I've spent so much time in the U.S. Right? But then I also feel the same way with American people. Like I'm not exactly American, and I've talked with my friends about this. Friends that live here in the U.S. and are Hispanics. But there's definitely like a subculture within a subculture. There's definitely like an immigrant subculture where even when I speak Spanish, I use like a little bit of Spanglish, and I'll mix in like English words in my Spanish vocabulary. So yeah, definitely like 100% to what you're saying. Very American to have multiple identities, and again, it's a melting pot. So a good example, something I use often is like, I'm talking to a friend in Spanish, I'd be like, oh, Noel, ahorita en la mañana voy a ir al gym. So I'm using gym I'm saying in the morning I'm gonna go to the gym, but in Colombia you don't say that. You'd be like, voy a ir al gimnasio, but again, I am not throwing any shade to Ferguson or whatever. If he was obviously spitting some Spanish at the press conference. I'm just saying I think it's interesting, and certainly again, identity is just a very complex thing to talk about, but certainly respect anyone that again, he has a lot of Mexican heritage and a lot of ties, and he identifies as Mexican, and he has the right to do so for sure, 100%. All right, I believe that was it. Those are all the questions. If anybody has anything to say, let me see. What's the daily life as an MMA media member? Do you work irregular 9 to 5? Oh no. Oh no. You work a lot of weekends. You work a lot of odd hours. So it's definitely like a different job, like from most jobs. So for example, Saturday night is going to be a very busy day for me, or just Saturday in general. Right, morning I got that media day I was telling you about, and then at night I'm working the fights. So certainly that's usually when people have off. So your schedule revolves around the MMA schedule, and yeah, it's far from a 9 to 5, but that's not to say some days you have 9 to 5 days or something similar to it. But certainly your schedule is a little bit unorthodox, I would say. And if you are somebody that's looking to work in MMA media, that's something you should consider. This whole thing, like, oh, I work and you know Friday hits and I'm done and see you Monday. Nope. And I'm okay with that. I love MMA, and mm, this is my life. What school do you train in South Florida? V-Pro K. It used to be V-Pro K. Now it's called Maddox Jiu-Jitsu. Shouts out to Ricky Simiglia. He runs that academy now. I trained a little bit at American Top Team. Not Coconut Creek, another one. Not for long though. But mainly Maddox Jiu-Jitsu, which I just mentioned. I got 4 minutes till I hate the hour, so fuck it. I'm just gonna do it. And I believe some questions are coming on, so I'll just answer those. How do you pronounce Stella or toys? I don't even know, man. There's a lot of English words that I have a hard time pronouncing. Um, for some reason, it's weird. Stella, I just say, can I get a Stella? Stella's a fine beer. I like Stella, Belgian beer. Super chat, super chat. All right, so I don't. Super chat is kind of like super chat is like where you have a chat and people can throw in money or give you money, right? Through the super chat and ask a question, and the question gets like highlighted or whatever. I only have 2,000 subscribers, so I'm not eligible for that. I think that's when you get past 10,000. So you guys can't give me money just yet. Not that I need it. I'm fine. I'm fine with my current situation. And I don't even know. But no, that's not eligible for me. But I mean, it'd be a nice option to have at some point. So, but that's only possible, you know, through you guys and spreading the word and helping this grow. Really, I mean, you guys are really what helps this grow, right? Mm, I can make a million burner accounts and subscribe and all this, but obviously I'm not going to do that. But what I'm saying is, it takes real people. It takes you guys, to subscribe, like the video, share it, all that, for others to catch on and this and that. Um, so yeah, so far my experience in YouTube has been great. I really enjoy doing this and having a platform to speak. It's I mean, Twitter is also a platform to speak, and social media, but it's not the same to like sit here and talk to you guys. It's definitely like a different experience, and this is my own. This and for example, like when you work for an outlet, like you have to rely on those hours, right? Like, okay, our programming hours are these, on these days we release these type of programming, blah blah blah. Whereas this, like, I was kind of like wrapping up with work. I think I'm gonna do a couple of things more after this, but I literally just went on Twitter. I'm like, yo, you guys done a chat? I had a lot of people say, yeah, let's do it. So I'm like, all right, cool. And it's awesome to have that platform. So I'm really grateful I started this. And I hope to continue on doing it and doing enough good job to give you guys good content. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying what I've been posting, because I certainly have been enjoying making it. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you guys. Nicholas Thompson, thoughts on O'Malley versus Quinones fight? That's the one. If I had to pick a fight outside of the main and co-main event, that's the fight. That's the fight. That's an amazing fight. The headlines, the ESPN card. Sean O'Malley, there's this fight is so good. There's a lot of like storylines going into it. So this is his return fight. Sean O'Malley obviously like had a lot of issues with USADA, and now that's all gone. I believe it was some tainted supplements and all this and that. He was suspended for a bit, and now he's back. And his story is so interesting because his hype was so big at some point, especially in his last win. What was it against Andre Sukumtaj, if I'm not mistaken? Let me just pull that up so I'm 100% accurate. And I'm not making anything up. Yeah, Andre Sukumtaj at UFC 222. That was back in 2018. Jesus Christ. And yeah, that's when Cyborg was still champ. Jesus. And that's the last time he fought, man. And still, he's only 25 years old. That's how young he came into UFC. He's undefeated, 10-0. He's got a very, and I said this on the MMA Beat like a long time ago. And I don't know if, I was also at the time, I think probably I was like the youngest MMA Beat panelist like ever. Most of the guys there are older than me, and or were older than me, right? Or are, because they're still currently around, obviously, but the show isn't. I don't know if they have the same perception as I do as Sean O'Malley because of an age difference there, but like I have friends that like you know what I'm saying, like. Not that I identify, yeah, maybe I do identify a whole lot. He just feels like very millennial. Like that's who I am. I'm a millennial, and he's 25. I'm only a couple years older than him. He plays Fortnite. I play Fortnite as well. Streams. I kind of stream, but I stopped. I got busy. And even just the way he talks and all that, and I feel like he could be a big start just because of that. I mean, this is a young man's sport. Most people that watch the sport are between the age of 18 and 34, and that's the millennial demographic. Obviously, there's older people as well and younger. But I mean, at least from my Twitter analytics and from other analytics that I've seen, that seems to be like the age group, and I feel like he speaks to that age group, and is I feel like maybe a lot of people could find some sort of, I don't know, they identify with him. Not necessarily 100%. Obviously, he's got the face tattoos and all that. I don't, and obviously we're much more, we're different people. But I feel like he could be a big star, man. And he dresses well. He's got swag to him. He's not, there was a time where a lot of people were copying the Conor McGregor swag and all this and that, and that's what it seemed like, copies. You might not like it. You might see some similarities to Conor McGregor, this and that, but he's definitely got his own swag going on. And yeah, I feel like he can go very far as well. So here he is trying to make a comeback. And who they give him? Teco Quiñones. And I feel like a lot of people think this is just a tune-up fight and a nice little fight for him to look good and look pretty. But, dude, Teco Quiñones is a dog. That motherfucker's a dog. I was there for his last fight against Carlos Joaquin. It was a Peruvian in Mexico City. And for those that don't know, Peru and Mexico have a little bit of a rivalry in MMA. Maybe not so much in soccer and other sports, but in MMA, those are the two really, I don't want to say superpowers, but as far as like Hispanic countries, Mexico and Peru produce many, many good fighters. Colombia's far behind. Chile's coming up, but not really that, not compared to Peru or Mexico. Argentina has some good fighters as well, but not compared to Peru and Mexico. I mean, think about this. Out of it's been 3 Ultimate Fighter Latin Americas, I believe. How many? There's been several Mexican champions as well as Peruvian, at least, or at least runner-up, Enrique Barzola, to mention him, and Claudio Puelles. There's a good MMA in Peru. That's just to say. So, anyways, so that was a big fight, and just the face-off. It was like a lot of people were into it, and in Mexico, Teco Quiñones is a star. I would say he might be even a bigger star than Jair Rodriguez. Like in Mexico, the people love Teco Quiñones. People love Teco Quiñones, and I wish he like learned how to speak English because he's got such an amazing personality. I talked to him in Spanish. That interview's up on MMAJunkie.com. Even against Carlos Joaquin, he's telling me how he wants to perform in Spanish. He's got this look on him. He wants to perform an Aztec ritual and rip his heart out. And just the way in Spanish, it just comes off different, man. And he was talking, smack, not smack, but like he was like, "Was good? Like this kid hasn't done much in the UFC." And like again, it's hard for me to express because there's words in Spanish that don't translate. But the dude can be a big star. The dude can be a big star, especially in Mexico. And I feel like people don't, especially the American public and the American media, don't haven't picked up on that. And he's kind of like, oh, just probably somebody another tough Latin American dude. But if you look at, I believe on the MMA Junkie, all the interviews that we did from Media Day, Teco Quiñones is one of the highest ones. So this is an interesting one, and he's young. He's a scrapper. He's got an interesting story. For those that don't know, he lives in Zacatecas, Mexico. The governor in Zacatecas is a black belt in Kung Fu or Taekwondo, and he's a big MMA fan. So he hooks up Teco and pays literally for his training camp. Like the government pays for his training camp. Like they hook him up with a house, nutritionist, trainers, gyms, etc. There's murals in Zacatecas of him. Like he's a big deal. So yeah, this fight's great. They were booked to fight before, so there's a little bit of history there. And man, that's gonna be a scrap. I'm excited for it. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a sneaky good fight on this card that I'm really excited for, and I look forward to. And I feel like people are sleeping on it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that is due to the language barrier. But that's a big fight, man. That's a big fight. All right. Let's see what else. I'll answer one more and get out of here. How often do you do this? So these streams, I try to do them about. I do one at the very least once a week, but usually I try to do like a live Q&A in the middle of the week, mostly talk about like news and headlines, and then I'll do a recap or a preview specifically geared to an event. So this was supposed to be I guess a UFC 248 preview, but I know I got into some other stuff just because people were asking me and stuff like that. But hopefully I got enough UFC 248 stuff that I answered your questions. But yeah. Oh shit, Chris Cyborg's in the chat. No way. Danny's one of my favorite up and coming reporters in MMA. Great work. Keep it up. Chris, we gotta link up and do an interview, and we gotta chat. But thank you for that. Very nice words, and I appreciate your work. You've been kicking ass in Bellator, and you're one of the greatest ever. You're the greatest featherweight of all time, and obviously up there. I mean, look, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible. Minimus has put in amazing work, but you're certainly up there, and you're certainly a legend in women's MMA. So I appreciate you hopping on the chat. I can't believe it, and saying that about me. Thank you so much. But yeah. All right, with that being said, I can't really top a Chris Cyborg comment, so I'm going to call it quits here. So thank you so much to everybody that tuned into the stream. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everybody that subscribed, give a thumbs up. If you haven't already, do that. Tell your friends about it. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoy the fights on Saturday night, tomorrow night at UFC 248. Keep it locked to MMAJunkie.com. We got you covered with social stuff, articles, videos, anything you need to know about UFC 248, we got you covered. So make sure you check us out and go over to our page for all your content. So again, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll probably do a recap of UFC 248 at some point. I'll be traveling on Sunday back to New York, so we'll see how that works out. But if anything, I'll just post it on my Twitter and give you guys a heads up as to what I'm doing with this channel, if I'm going to do any type of video or anything like that. But most likely I'll have something up for sure. So yeah, thank you. And you guys have a good night.